Hello, this is going to be my warm-up routine that I usually do every day. It varies, but this is what I'm going to do today and I'm going to show you. So this might be split up into 2 videos due to like the capacity of the video being 30 minutes long. So it might be 15 minutes and 15 minutes, but we'll see how long it'll go for in this video. So first what I like to do is I like to do some breathing and some stretching. So first I'm going to do some stretching. I'll move the camera this way. Okay, so I'm just going to stand. Okay, I'll do some stretches. Down to the toes. Really kind of feel like your body is just relaxed and calm with these stretches. It's almost like you're going out to run or to play a sport or something, and you gotta get those stretches in so your run or whatever you're doing doesn't feel strained or you don't feel super sore afterwards. It helps. So musicians are just like athletes. We need to stretch before we practice or perform. Okay. Take a couple minutes just to settle in, kind of shake it all out. Next, we're gonna do some breathing. So we're gonna do, let's do in for 4 and out for 4. So I'll count us off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's do that again. We're going to do that 2 more times. In for 4, out for 4. 1, 2, ready, and. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do different analogies of things that you do like in a daily life. So there's darts, there's arrows, there's like throwing a baseball or football. So that kind of helps like you visualize where the air is going, because sometimes when you're just going up and down, you're thinking like tension right here. You don't want it. You want to feel it from your diaphragm, from your stomach. You want to feel that the air going continuously in and out, not being strained, not being constricted. So let's do some darts now. So we're gonna do in for 2, out for 8. 1, 2, ready, and. So that just kind of helps you visualize where the air is going. Those are darts or whatever you're throwing. Could be a pencil, it could be really anything. I like to do that. If this was a group warm-up session, I'd have people like go around and give us numbers of like how much in and how much out. So now let's pretend we're doing an arrow. Let's do in for 1, out for 4. 1, 2, ready, and. So that's just a good representation of your pulling it back and then letting it release, which the air is release, and then pulling it back is when you breathe in. So I like to do those exercises. And let's see. Let's move on to some buzzing. Usually I'll do a couple minutes of the stretching and breathing, however much time you want. Let's go over to the piano and do some buzzing. Actually, we don't need to use the piano. We can just free buzz. So we're basically not going to really produce a note, but if you do produce a note, that's fine. We're just gonna do a light, easy buzz. Now, this is not like an original exercise. Professor Andy Kozar, he calls this the barely buzz. And it's just a great way to kind of get the lips moving for the day. Again, no tension, just getting the lips moving. So yes, let's try that again. And with this, it doesn't matter if you kind of, once you get that note, you can stay on that note, or you can go like sirens up and down. It's really up to you. It's just kind of, there's no like set, like you have to do this a certain way. It's just getting a note out, or just kind of feeling how the mouthpiece sounds when you're doing it. So let's do that again. And you see, the more repetitions that you're doing this barely buzz, the more times you'll see that, oh, okay, you're starting to play a note with more ease and not with any tension or any constriction in your body or your lips or your mouth or whatever it is. So I think that just really helps kind of get the lips going for the day. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a breath attack on G. If it's high, it's low, it's fine, but as long as it's just centered and it is kind of a clean and continuous airflow. So. Okay, now we're gonna do tongue on G. You see how it went high? So we don't want that. We don't want it to be super high like that. We want it to be centered, a nice clean centered sound. When it was too high, that means that my lips and my tongue position was too high up in the mouth, and that was causing me to play up there when it needs to be centered to just a normal G. And sometimes what I like to do is I like to experiment. So I'm just gonna use my B flat trumpet for this example. But what I like to do to make sure that I'm not super high, I like to take the mouthpiece, do that again, and then I'm going to put it to the trumpet and see if it's too high when I put it in the trumpet. So let's see. So I don't know if you heard, but there was some dip of the sound, so we don't really want that. Let's try that again. Centered sound, even, on the note G. So that was better. I just like to experiment. Just, it's fun to kind of just like play around in the trumpet. A lot of the warm-up sessions that I do and just like practice in general is kind of just playing around and seeing what feels right. And if something is tense or I'm feeling that, oh, this is not going well, put the trumpet down for a second, think about it, maybe go take a walk, take a drink of water outside, just to kind of, not let those bad habits creep back in when I'm just constantly like staring at a page or, playing a certain excerpt or exercise. Just good to kind of like go away from it for a second and then come back to it and have like a more refreshed mind. So I like to do that. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go on to my C trumpet, sorry. I've said before that I like to warm up on my B flat a lot, just because I think that I love the sound of my B flat, but I shouldn't neglect my C. So I'm gonna go on my C trumpet. I've been recently doing more C trumpet warm-ups because I've realized that it's helped my playing in general on my C trumpet when it comes to ensembles and just to like performing solos. So let's just do some of that. So we're going to play a little bit of a Schlossberg exercise. So we're gonna start on G, our middle G, and we're gonna go down to G, to F sharp to G, and then stop, G, F natural to G. So we're going down chromatically. So let's do that. Easy as that, just hearing chromatically going down. Now we're going to start on low C. So I don't know exactly what number this in the book, but it's in the very beginning of the book where it's literally just going down chromatically, starting on G, then goes to low C, then goes to high C. So we'll do that now. So let's go from low, so we're going to start on low C, go down to B, back to C, stop, C, B flat, C. So you see how it goes. Now we're going to go high C, same thing, just up an octave. Just stop on the F sharp, from the F sharp to the C. So the reason why I do the Schlossberg exercises is because I think that they're just a good representation of where you hear your notes in relation to a tonic note. So for example, with the G going down to F sharp, G to F sharp, that is simple as an easy interval exercise. You're focusing on the sound of the G sounding the same as the F sharp, as same thing as a D, as a C sharp. So no matter what the distance is between the notes, it could be a high C to a low F sharp, but the goal is you want to have the notes settle in the same range. Now, easier said than done, because obviously these are pretty big octave leaps, more than octave leaps. So, but visually, you should be seeing this as close, if not to the center of each other's notes, that they should be touching each other, because that shows that, oh, okay, I don't need to force, or I don't need to like constrain my air or whatever it is, or like have a lot of tension in my body to reach those high notes. So I think that it's nice to kind of just visualize, okay, they're on the same level. There's nothing that is scary about them. So I like to think of it that way. So now moving on, I like to do some Chikowitz out of Professor Andy Kozar's book. He has a little bit of a variation on it. So yeah, we can just check that out. I like to do this because I think it's also another work on chromaticism, but it's also just really good to get the fingers going. So let's do that. Okay. So this is called flow study number 2. If we were in actual warm-up class, I would obviously share the projector what I'm doing, but for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna kind of explain it through. So we're gonna go from G, middle G, to C, to middle G, back again. Then we're gonna go G, F sharp, G, and then chromatically up to C, and then chromatically down to G, E, and C. So I'll just watch my fingers. And then down to F sharp. Okay, F. E. I'm gonna try that again, sorry. Got to the best of me, sorry about that. E flat. D natural. C sharp. We'll try that one more time. Sometimes they're not always perfect, but that's why I have to go back and kind of retrain my brain. C sharp. That's not perfect, but again, that's like for my warm-up sake and for this video, I kind of just wanted to show that that even in a warm-up practice, it's not always going to be perfect. So so now I want to do one more of those flow study exercises out of Professor Andy Kozar's book. It's called Flow Study 3. So I'm going to start on G again, go to C, go to E, and then go back to C, and then go back to G, and then we're just going to be doing a scale from there. So I'll show you. Then F sharp. F natural. C sharp, I need to start that, and I have started before. C sharp and F sharp scales are definitely ones I need to work on, and I feel like when after my warm up, I go through like scales and other things like that to work on the C sharp and F sharp scales because it gets tricky, especially those types of fingerings. So then what I like to do next is I'm gonna do some. This is out of Chris Gecker's book. It's his articulation studies book. It's called Master Series Gecker Articulation Studies Exercises, Etudes, Duets. So we're gonna start on his first one. So it's basically just G major, but we're just going, I'll just show you, and you would have obviously the sheet of paper or a projection of what I'm doing. So we're gonna go down to F. Sometimes like what I like to do is I like to repeat it also, and I do like a different articulation the second time. So for example, let's do the F natural one again. First slurred, and then we'll see what I do. So obviously what I did was I just did basically eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and like, so it's all eighth notes, and then at the end I just added some 16ths. It's just kind of fun to play around with them instead of just, because books are only used for kind of examples, and then those examples you basically add on and make it your own, because based on if you want to work on articulation, if you want to work on flexibility, so it really just depends, and you basically cater it to how you want it to be done. These are really good exercises for getting the fingers moving again, good on articulation, and just, you know, making sure you know what a G major scale is, what a F sharp, whatever it may be. So let's do E flat. Slurred and then tongue. Obviously the second iteration, let's do D natural. Let's try that one more time, making sure we have the F sharp and C sharp. Sometimes I read things, or I think about them too fast and I forget things, so that's part of warm up. So let's do D natural. So I messed up on that last part, but then again, I'm gonna just write in that I need to work on that. It's an easy scale, but there is always room to make mistakes, even in an easy scale. That's why it's so important to really like pound out these exercises. So then I like to work out of the stamp book, which let me see, I have in here, because I can't always find it on my iPad. But let's see, stamp book. These are really good flexibility exercises. I think they're important to do. So we're just going to do the basic warm-up number 1, or number 3. It says 3 basic warm-up. C, and then B. is going to go down chromatically like we always do. Making sure that that bottom note is nice and full. No tension again, just nice and full, open sound. Even in a practice room with carpeted floors, I like to pretend that I'm in a beautiful hall, because although it's can be hard to really hear your sound in a practice room, once the amount of practice that you do in a practice room where there's carpeted floors and it's kind of like a very closed sound, once you get into a performance space, you're like, okay, wow, I don't need to really work that hard, but I'm glad I did. And so that's why like warm-upping and practicing in general is important, because then when you get out into the stage, you're like, okay, wow, like I practiced all this and it really paid off. And that's really the whole point. So, okay, now we're gonna go down to B flat. G natural. G flat. F natural. So now what we're getting into is pedal tones. That very low note, is basically what a pedal tone is. At least my definition is where it goes beyond the register of the trumpet. So pedal tones is usually what trombone players or low brass players play. And there's obviously are more cleaner because they have like the ability to play in that register. For trumpet players, what you're making sure is when you're going down that low, sometimes you won't always feel the note. It might not even come out. But the whole point is you don't want to let loose of it so much where you're like have no embouchure at all, but you really kind of just want to drop the jaw like you're a nutcracker. Another professor at Berkeley and Longy, Chloe Swindler, says that whenever you think about a pedal tone, or when you're just playing in a really low register, think of your like dropping your jaw like a nutcracker. I think that's a really good analogy, because you're not letting everything let go, you're just letting it drop like. So it's hard to think because you don't. So it is like your lips are going like a little bit out, but you're just thinking low drop jaw. So let's do it on the E natural. So not as drastic as I just showed, but it's actually easier in an exercise like this to go down because like it's more sequential in the scale. So let's do E flat. Okay, D natural. D flat or C sharp. So it's very low, but you're not creating any more tension than you would in a middle register or high register, thinking that the notes are leveled to each other. So now what I think I kind of just to end off the warm-up is I like to do just some flexibilities, not from a certain book, not in a certain way, but these flexibilities are really good just to kind of get like the mouth like warmed up, and like it's just so it's like easier to play when you're going to your repertoire for the day. So we can just start on Let's go up. So let's do start on F sharp. So I'll just play it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So what you can do is you can start really slow and get fast into it. And sometimes Professor Andy Kozar likes to do that. I really think that's a good idea because it shows that even though it's going faster, it doesn't mean it's harder. But you want to have like a natural progression into it. So we did it again. And then it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how many times you're going back and forth. It's just it's kind of like a lip trill. You're going like da 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 da, like however many times you want to. No certain beat count, whatever it is, just playing. Then we're going to do G. So I don't know if you noticed, but going to the B, sometimes there was a little bit of a lag, or my tongue was getting stuck up there because that's why the G didn't come. That's why it didn't come back down to G. So you just have to really be conscientious of that, making sure it's continuous air. Let's see. So now we're on A flat. And we're going up again. A. B flat. B natural. C. So that's what I like to, and then also sometimes before my practice session, not my practice session, sorry, before this end of the section, sorry, I like to do just a lyrical kind of a improv. And I think it's sometimes playing around, like I said in the very beginning, playing around in your warm-up, it really helps kind of just solidify that it's okay to make mistakes. Obviously, like in a performance, you don't want to make a million mistakes, but just to kind of play around with things, because then when it gets to the performance time, you're like, okay, wow, like it's really not as bad as I thought it was. So for the improv, what I like to do is I give myself a key. It could be major, minor, whatever, a certain mode, doesn't matter. And I just like to play around with it. If we were in a group setting where everyone was in a circle, or, you know, whatever the configuration was, we'd go around the room, we'd play maybe like a minute worth of a little improv etude or something that we made up ourselves. And then you pass, it's like basically passing the baton on. So then the next person will kind of pick up where the person left off. So just for my sake, I'm just gonna do just an etude. And let's do it in F major. So I am sorry if this was mainly like talking, but I think it's really just important I mean, I feel warmed up for the day. With these other exercises, sometimes I will add in more things or go beyond kind of the page. But just for like a demonstration of my warm up, this is what I like to do, usually in this order. Sometimes things change around for the day and I start with articulation or I start with an A2, you know, it really kind of is up, depends on the day. So yeah, thank you so much.